Hello. Today I am presenting Arches National Park. Welcome to the Arches. So, Arches National Park is located in Utah near the town of Moab. Fun fact about Arches National Park, you can actually find some rock markings in the park left by the Paiute people of the Great Basin. The geologic setting of the park. So, Arches National Park is in a arid desert climate. It's full of folded and fractured sandstone with some salt-cored anticlines that are experiencing dissolution. These are going to be important for the arches later. The landscape itself is full of course, arches, mounds, and rock stacks. There are some faults, but they are long since inactive for the most part. They have left their marks on different rocks, different structures with, the faults and the salts. The land itself, long ago, was actually lifted up and folded and fractured and everything like that during a particularly large subduction mountain building event. While the actual subduction was many miles away on the coast, the land nearby, given the size of everything, was still affected and was thrust above sea level, and during that it experienced some compression, which has caused the fractures and the cracking and everything. The park itself is mostly composed of different types of sandstone, and there are some small deposits of sedimentary rocks and some shales. The Colorado River does carve its way through the park at the southern edge. It actually makes up the southern border, going south to towards Mexico and eventually dumping out into the Gulf. In the park, the Colorado, it's primarily meandering through all the cliffs and down-cutting the entire time. Courthouse Wash is the closest body of water to the park, and it does feed into the Colorado, although it is currently impaired with low oxygen content and high salt content. Given that the salts are a predominant thing in the area, in the earth, I imagine this high salt content will be a concern for the foreseeable future. Excuse me. Erosion is the prime hazard in the park. Rain, the salt, and snow all contribute towards erosion of the different formations in the park. This does have potential to create more arches, which I'll get into later, but also it creates more and more opportunities for rock falls and landslides and things like that to happen. Rain especially contributes to the eroding, but it also presents a risk of flash flooding. Because this is arid, rocky terrain, there isn't as good floodplains as we would have like in Georgia. So it is less able to handle those high amounts of water. In order to mitigate these hazards, you should always travel in groups and stay hydrated. Hydration is important not only for the heat, but also because it staves off the effects of dehydration, which, is also a combatant with heat, of course, but as well as it keeps you from being lightheaded and having headaches and anything that would distract you from just being generally wary. Additionally, just keep an eye on the weather forecasts, and if it does seem like there's heavy rain expected, maybe just don't travel the park. So how exactly did the park form, or the landforms and everything in the park? How did they form? So about 65 million years ago, the Pacific Plate subducted beneath the North American Plate. This was the event that caused the Rocky Mountains to be formed, and because it was such such a impactful event, it didn't just affect that coastal area, it also affected other areas as well. As the land was, pushed up, mountains were being built, there was some compression of all of this buried sandstone, and it began to crack and fracture and fold as it was also lifted up. Over time, between the water and the snow and the wind, and more importantly, with the salt as well, this caused erosion into the arch shapes that we see today. Now, what are the effects of humans in regards to Arches National Park? So, the surrounding area does have pollution to the air with smog and pollution into the water with industrial byproducts and cosmetic products, those kind of things. There's also noise and light pollution, which affect nighttime studies and things like that. Humans also disturb the land with tracks, whether that's foot tracks or vehicle tracks, and this disturbs the biological soil crust, which is a protective covering that makes the ground more erosion resistant. The paths which they travel, because that the biological soil crust is now removed after being stepped on or ridden on or whatever the case may be so much, that becomes the prime target for erosion. Water will always travel the path of least resistance, and so you might find those paths getting eroded on a part where you otherwise would not expect too much erosion because of the removal of that biological soil crust. These things can be mitigated by just travel on marked paths that, official trails, roads, that kind of thing, and support bills proposed to local governments, state governments, federal government to protect the environment. In conclusion, Arches National Park is a unique plot of land that showcases the unique processes that goes into the formation of all of these arches. Through the protection and education about this beautiful park, we can better appreciate how our planet works and the wonders it can create. Thank you very much. My name is Camden Peacock.